Hello to viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Rocket Monday, we're going to talk about the current race, the race to the moon that is between USA and China. So let's dive deep into it. So China, now let this be very clear. It was something on the horizon always. Like even India has a plan to eventually land people on the moon. However, China officially ratified it, quote unquote, it on July 2023, where they made their mission statement very clear that human landing by 2030 and to the South Pole, basically rare areas of the moon or the interesting area for water ice. So that was clearly laid out. Now be mindful, they have been working behind the scenes and they have been making missions, but this is the first time they're like, no, this is our aim. Basically, this is like we choose to go to the moon kind of timeline. And they had plan in motion for years and they have been building brick by brick. This is one thing they got very right. They do not just have like, how NASA in the worst years, they were like, oh, if this, oh, no, this, oh, no, this. No, China had very clear cut, very distinct steps where it's like A, B, C, D, moon. So that's it. And many of the steps are already finished. For example, from Chang'an 4, that's supposed to happen in 2018, did happen. Chang'an 6, 2024, it happened. 7, 2026, most likely will happen. 8, 2028, most likely will happen. They have landed on moon and they have very high resolution pictures and they have a rover. Everything is done, sorted. So now when they're claiming this puppy, the likelihood of that actually happening is high. So this is from China's point of view. China is like, hey, we're gonna go to the moon and we are working on it. Cool. So what's their status? It's one thing to claim, again, technically even India claims that, but you have to understand, they have one good thing in contrast to NASA is that they have very thorough plan. Like, damn, the plan is thorough. It's almost like the good old days of Apollo where it's like, we're gonna land on the moon. What do we need to do? Okay, we need to test this rocket. We need to test this docking. We need to test this landing. We need to test it. All those steps. China has everything very well defined and very defined timeline, meaning you're gonna figure the algorithm of landing by this year. They did. You're gonna figure out algorithm for docking in lunar gravity. They did. You're gonna figure out how to do return trajectory. They did. So every progress is as expected, meaning we're going to give ourselves 2 years to sort this out. They sorted it out. We're going to give 4 years to sort this out. They sorted it out. Everything is working. So as of now, when I'm making this video, they have landed on moon for 4 times, all of them success, and Chang'e 3 to Chang'e 6, and 2 of them are sample freaking return, meaning not only they landed on the moon, they collected material, launched it from the landed rover, captured it in lunar orbit, yeeted that puppy into Earth, and then recovered it. Basically, miniature Saturn V. Think in this way, like if this mission looks complicated, look into Saturn V. Dicto the same thing, like only scaled down, of course, but exact same thing. So now if they say, hey, we can reliably dock in lunar gravity, they can do that. Why? Because they have done it not once, twice, and there is a very good chance in 1 or 2 years they will have 3 or 4 tries of these. So they are very thorough and very methodic, where it's like, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna test it. So if now they say that we know with very precision, high precision, how to do return from lunar orbit to basically Earth surface, they have proof for that. It's like, no sir, we calculated it's going to land in this, it landed in this. That's an absolute verification. So at this point in time, their timeline, that 2030 deadline, the chance is very high of success, meaning things are moving as it should, and they have no, whoa, how the heck this happened, oops, no, none of that. It's very thorough, very methodic, and things are moving quite well. So likelihood as of now in 2024 is very good chance that they can actually put boots on the moon by 2030. Things are moving well, very well at this point in time. Now let's compare to that from USA's point of view. Now USA is the first winner of this first space race. Now that puppy was won by USA in 1969, and this happened on 20 July 1969. Neil Armstrong was the winner basically. And here's the deal, the race was against the USSR or Soviet Union. Unfortunately, Soviet Union poofed itself, so it disappeared by 1991, basically more than 30 years ago. So that created a very big void. Now, how the heck America managed to do that in 1969? Well, Saturn V was their puppy and boatload of bowls, big bowls. Here's the deal, you have to understand, they knew many things. Like, for example, there is binaural radiation belt. How do they knew that they will survive going through it? No, they did not. They're just like, we have to do it. We have the best we can do. You go through it as quickly as possible, plan it so it has the exposure time is very minimal, and hope for the best. Basically, fundamentally, it is true that many risks that they took in 1969, nobody would be comfortable nowadays. They did it. Like, it's just go YOLO. And yes, bad things did happen. You do not want to know what happened to Apollo 1 crew, and you really do not want to be in a position of Apollo 13. So trust me, they were pushing it. And Saturn V, while the rocket worked flawlessly, it did, basically they were pushing it. Short answer, they were pushing it. Now here's the deal, how the heck they did it, right? Many times people are like, oh, this could not be true if it happened in 1969, why moon is not our backyard? Well, it took a lot of money. Now, money has this problem of inflation. So you do not get a context of it. It's like how much money is how much money. Well, there's a better solution for this. For example, NASA is a governmental agency, meaning it gets money granted to it from national budget. And assume national budget as 100%. Cool. Okay. National budget 100%. How much of that fraction you are getting? So this is from basically at its inception to now. Here's the funny thing. When they were doing this puppy, they were almost getting 4.5% of national budget, which is bonkersly high and practically speaking, ludicrously high because no other country has that much. None. Like, this is bonkersly large amount of money that had to be put into it for years. Like, they maintained it for quite some time and then it brought down. Now, what is the brought down level? Exactly 0.4%. So basically 10x cut has happened. So if you're like, oh, why can't they go back? Well, here's your answer. This gap is your answer. The 10x drop is your answer. Can they do it today? Absolutely. But they cannot do it in that 1/10 of the budget. They have other things to take care of in that budget. So fundamentally, it was a very expensive mission. They did it, but the other competitor poofed itself. So they are like, yeah, what's the point? People lost interest. And was it a good investment from a national's point of view? It's like, hey, we are pouring this much money, which is again stupendous amount of money. This is almost like wartime economy kind of money. This is stupid. Yes, this is one of the best money that America ever spent. If you ever wanted to understand why America had a technology after World War II, ta-da! Why do they have silicon? Ta-da! Why do they have memory phone? Ta-da! Why do they have battery powered drills? Ta-da! Like, you do not want to figure out like how many tech trees literally evolved from this point onwards. Literally, like thousands of tech trees. None of them had to do with space. All of them are improving our life on Earth and printing money. Ta-da! So this is the USA's first race, and they destroyed the opponent. Let that be very clear. 1991, the opponent was no more, so they destroyed it. However, it happens whenever you are that good, you do need an opponent. When your opponent disappears, you rot. So it happens. The dark age happened. Now, after the loss of the competitor, as in like USSR, people lost interest. This is why I personally boils my blood whenever I see ISRO's PR. It's like, if you do not excite people, people will lose interest and their budget will be cut, and then you will complain, oh, we are not getting money. It's your job to have people's interest. So they lost interest. Budget cut was done again by 10x. And in this time, they scaled down their dreams. However, their dreams were now on a new bus. The idea of this bus was that you can just put things in orbit, take things out of the orbit, repair it. Basically, just a bus from basically sea level to low Earth orbit. They called this bus Space Shuttle. Now, this puppy flew in 1981 for the first time. So that was the aim. The aim was, it's gonna be cheap. It's gonna do multiple missions. Basically, they were aiming for 2 missions per month, and it's gonna be safe. It's just gonna be a bus to low Earth orbit. Unfortunately, this is one of the worst failure of NASA. And yes, it failed on all 3 factors, meaning it's supposed to be cheap. No, it costed same as Saturn V. It's supposed to do high cadence, barely managed to do 2 launches per year. It's supposed to be safe. It caused the worst loss of life. Basically, Challenger, 7 people, 1986, Columbia, 2003, again 7 people. So 14 people lost. And again, they had to cancel it because they realized like this is just not a good bus they built. Like Saturn V would have been better and cheaper. That will be very clear. So could they have built a ISS without space shuttle? Absolutely, they could have done it in 2-3 launches. It would have been that much easier if they had kept Saturn V working. So they learned it the hard way. This was bad. This was failure. This costed a lot of money, costed loss of life, and they had to retire it prematurely. So bad happened. And this is the time where USA lost their long-term plan, because again there was no competition. People knew from a fact that Russia does not have that like same oomph. China that time was not really a threat. India again was not really in the race, so to say. So their long-term plan, what USA is going to do in long term, was LOL. But in that LOL, they created Constellation project. This project basically, the idea was space shuttle. It was a government project, so they're like, what if we can recycle those parts, keep the jobs and do something with it? So they built a rocket, and yes, they actually physically built a rocket and flew it, tested it. And this was done during the era of 2004 to 2010, so Constellation era. And you're like, hey, this rocket looks almost like SLS. Yeah, it is predecessor to SLS. And the whole idea was the same thing. Space shuttle, they never let space shuttle pass away. Basically, they let Saturn V pass away, never let the shuttle pass away. I'm like, what are you smoking, man? So they let the Constellation happen, and it was cancelled. And yes, billions of dollars was spent. They actually built it, tested it, and poof. The only part that was salvaged was basically the second rocket, Antares rocket, I think that's called. They retooled it to SLS, and the capsule was done. The Orion capsule was from Constellation, so they safeguarded that. But during basically from 2010 and 2017, that 7-year gap, there was no plan. This was done, but there was no plan, like nothing. It was just like no plan. However, this is the worst that USA ever been in compared to, like, they had space wing to like going back to Russia, could you please launch our astronauts? It was bad time. But in this dark age where they had this much mess up, they did got one thing right. They planted the seed of commercial space. You may know this guy known as Falcon 1. It worked on the fourth try. It worked. So this seed was planted exactly in that dark era. So in the dark ages, they went down very badly, but they planted the seeds. And that seed finally blossomed. So now they have their comeback era. So in this era, what's the reality? As of now, 2024, ending of 2024, what's the reality? Yeah, SLS is in deep trouble. There is a very good chance it will be poofed permanently. Why? It almost consumed $100 billion and have nothing to show for it. Almost $100 billion. And you're like, okay, what about the private contract part? Yeah, they are only giving SpaceX $4 billion, Blue Origin 3.4 billion. That is much lower than 100. That is, and who consumed this dollars? Yeah, BS. There is no actual answer. It's like, why SLS is so overpriced? Boeing forgot how to do welding. I'm not even joking, that's the answer. And it's like, okay, what happened to that launch tower? Yeah, they forgot how to make towers. That's the reason why it's 100. And again, why the price is so goddamn high. The original plan was 2050-ish, like 2030s, 2050s. That was the original time frame to do on low cost. So finally go to the moon without, overburdening the tax bracket, so to say. And then they were like, okay, Trump comes into the office, and at that time, everybody is realizing that China will actually do it. They're like, yeah, we need to expedite it. So that's the timeline when you hear that 2024 deadline. Yeah, that did not happen, but they did give lot of money. Lot of money was given to SLS project in order to expedite it. All of that money, nothing happened with that. And 2030 at this point in time is only 5 years away, so it's very tight. However, let that be very clear, all this mess that happened, dark age, it did create two players, Blue Origin and SpaceX. Now, here's the, you may write off Blue Origin, but you have to understand Blue Origin has a guy who has very deep pocket, and he built a space engine, and his space engine actually put payload into space. Things are working, and he has a small, basically space rocket tourism company that is actually working. So that is not nothing. Again, it's not comparable to SpaceX, but it's not zero. Let that be very clear. It's not zero. It's like, who cares? No, it is significant, because if I remove SpaceX, Blue Origin looks like, damn. So only in contrast to SpaceX, Blue Origin looks like, what's the point? But again, remove the delay part of it. Are they moving along? Do they have a game plan? Do they have a new technology rocket system? Yes and yes. So that is a good thing. $3.4 billion for that, not a bad deal. And they are planning a traditional style lunar system, which is much, the style is traditional, but size is huge. Basically, they turbocharged Saturn V, new design. And another benefit is SpaceX. Now, I do not like this idea that forcing second stage of a lunar, basically low Earth orbit vehicle to go to moon. It's like, dude, this is second stage. You do not need, you just need this part. Just send the third stage. And again, you're like, okay, you cannot put enough rocket and payload. No problem. Just have this, deployed in low Earth orbit. Send a second rocket, deploy the payload, basically pusher, kickstate, so to say. Dock those things. Again, you're gonna dock for like 20 times for refueling. What if you just dock once? Tada! You can still send the whole thing and still properly land. Again, your tonnage will drop from, like, they're claiming stupid numbers right now. It's like 200 tons to lunar surface. Like, assume you can drop that from 200 to let's say 50 ton to or the surface. Is it valuable? Yeah, you are only requiring 2 launches and you are not throwing this whole thing away. You are recovering all of that. So design wise, this is stupid. But again, if you really push through it, if you're like, no, I'm gonna do this, you do get that payload advantage where it's like, yeah, we are dropping a boatload of tonnage. So assuming you can land, assuming you do not tip over, assuming you 10,000 things that can go wrong because of forcing a second stage to do the job of a third stage, you push through all of that. Yeah, at that point in time, you're gonna have some tonnage. China will be like, we have launched 25 ton to the surface of the moon. You're like, cool. Here's one of our rover that is at the same tonnage. So yes, there is a benefit of going this next generation route. Although I'm not happy with that. It's almost like flat panel below a rocket launch. You're forcing it with money, but it's a dumb idea. So I do expect that to change. I hope to change. Because again, if they are saying like docking, dropping things on moon, that can be done in 5 years. If they're like, we're gonna refuel this 20 times in 5 years, yeah, good luck. It's not that it can't be done. It's just that bonkersly large amount of money and you have already burnt the money. So NASA no longer has the money. So yeah, 4 billion may not be enough to push that much. And we might fall back to this Blue Origin safer design. So that's there. But again, what would be the benefit of it? 2030, let's say they delay, right? 2030, they could not do it. China did manage to land, beat them. What is the penalty of that? Yeah, I can guarantee you, if China actually lands, next year, they're going to land on there. And they're going to drop so much tonnage. It's like, oh, cute. You have one, small hut, so to say, which is like, your life support and all that. Here's a ton. Here's some 500 tons. Here's a whole ISS there. They're going to drop tonnage on top of tonnage with some extra tonnage just to show off. I can get it because that's the advantage of this new technology. This new technology, they can afford to do it. Meaning, if Starship works as expected, they're going to have a lot of tonnage opportunities without costing too much money. Because China does have a very great plan, but it's 1970s pipeline, so to say. So instead of 1970s pipelines, NASA has latest pipeline, refueling, docking, all of these things on a super heavy rocket does yield awesome results. So they have a comeback plan, but next 5 years it will be very tight. And assuming if China delays a bit, they will catch up. If they do not catch up, I can guarantee you they will flood the hell out of it. They're like, oh, nice. You in that crater, you have this one tiny spot. Every spot around you, I got this. So that's there. So this was my presentation on basically the moon race that is heating up right now. We're gonna know the results in 2030s. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.